Good afternoon and welcome. The big story that we've been tracking from the early hours of the morning, nothing short of a miracle on the Siachen glacier. A miracle involving one Lance Naik of the Indian Army, Lance Naik Hanamanthappa, a man who says one way or the other he was not going to die. And therefore, for a period of 6 days, in temperatures going down to -40, at an altitude of 19,600 feet, at one of the frontline posts of the Indian Army on the Saltoro range, which lies to the west of the Siachen glacier, this man survived. He was pulled out yesterday. He's been brought to Delhi now. He was pulled out. He was not conscious. There was barely a pulse on him. There were army doctors on the ground who revived him. He became partly conscious. He was put on an army aviation helicopter. He was flown from the highest helipad on earth to Thois, that's near the Siachen glacier, not too far. And from there on an aircraft, he was brought to New Delhi. He is now being treated, this hero, at the Army's Research and Referral Hospital in Delhi by the best possible doctors. This is the man who is the hero, Lance Naik Hanamanthappa Koppad, a brave soldier who has achieved something which is unbelievable. But in all of this, there is very sad news. The Northern Army commander, in a message, has said that unfortunately the other soldiers, 9 others, have died. But a little bit more detail, and which is this. The other soldiers who died were found around Hanamanthappa, and he was probably in a fiberglass reinforced hut at this 19,600 foot post on the Siachen glacier. We'll bring you more details of that in a moment, but let's bring you images of Prime Minister Narendra Modi along with the Army Chief General Dalbir Singh visiting the Army Research and Referral Hospital to meet the Lance Naik who is alive. Now, what is his condition? Well, just a few hours back we were saying that he was critical, and it has also been said that the next 48 hours are absolutely crucial to know what's going to happen to him. But the prayers of so many people across the country, his family and well-wishers of the Indian Armed Forces are with this very, very brave son of the country, and the hope is that he does pull out of it. The optimistic side of the medical assessment so far, and we expect something more detailed, is that there is a strong possibility that he will make it alive. But it's still close. We need to pray and hope that this man survives. Now, we're going to move right on to an NDTV exclusive. The terrain this man was fighting in, the terrain that so many soldiers of the Indian Army are deployed in, has been described as the highest, coldest and most inhospitable war ground anywhere in the world, with posts, some of them more than 20,000 feet above sea level. Let me put this in perspective for you. At that altitude, if you are not acclimatized, you will die. You will die of high altitude pulmonary edema. There will be liquid which forms in your lungs. You will be unable to breathe and you will die. To get to those altitudes, our soldiers go through a long acclimatization process. The soldiers who went up to that post were extremely fit, and they were trained to ensure that they survived even when there was an avalanche. One of them made it alive. Let's just go through a few pictures that the Army has been releasing for the last couple of days and describe what it is that we are seeing. Now, you saw that in Sudhir Ranjan's report as well. That area in the middle of this picture is where that ice avalanche actually came tumbling down. The length, it's 1 kilometer wide, I should say, with a vertical face of approximately 600 meters. This is the Sonam post, and believe it or not, right on top of this, right on top of the ridgeline, is Bana post. That's the highest military post anywhere on earth. India maintains that height as well. And it was 25 feet inside that ice that this soldier was actually found. Again, a small point over here, a critical point. Had it been snow, they would have been dug out much, much earlier. But the Army was using ground penetrating sonars. They were using ice cutters to carve their way through that ice. It's not snow, it's ice. And they carved their way 25 feet to find one survivor. That Jawan behind me, Lance Naik Hanamanthappa, who is surviving at the Army Research and Referral Hospital right now, and unfortunately the bodies of 9 other soldiers. They were in a fibre-reinforced hut. That is where they would normally have stayed. The earthquake, when it struck in the early hours of the morning 6 days back. They managed to collect together. They were trained to survive. There are unconfirmed reports that they were trying to communicate through radio as well. Unconfirmed, I should add. But it was only when the army pushed in ground penetrating radars that they were able to get a fix of the post, and then they dug and they dug. They used the help of sniffer dogs, and they managed to get to that post. Inasmuch as we talk about the remarkable rescue of this man, and remember he was recovered with barely any pulse at all, we need to speak also about the rescuers, and we've got images of the rescuers over here. These rescuers operating amongst those chunks of ice are heroes. They are men who cannot work in these conditions for more than 30 minutes at a stretch, because 30 minutes is the maximum you can go. After that, you need to collect your breath. You need to regain the energy to function at that altitude, even if you have oxygen in cylinders. So then another group of soldiers would move in over there. 2 hours back, I inquired about the weather conditions over here, because the other bodies have been detected. They've not yet been recovered. It was -40. There were blizzard conditions. Helicopter operations may be difficult the rest of today and tomorrow as well. Helicopter pilots operating over here operate at the very limits of the capabilities of their machines. They cannot fly higher, but they land here, they supply our soldiers, and they rescue our soldiers as well, and they rescued this particular man. And this image over here shows soldiers of the army using those ice cutters to dig through the ice. And it was in an area like this that they dug, and they kept digging until they found they kept digging until they actually found what they were looking for. Yeah, this is the image that I'm talking about over here, the image on the extreme right of your screens over there. This is the Siachen glacier, and it's interesting because if you see line of control written over here, that is the line of control as we know it, which exists, but it's after that the actual ground position line begins, and India's actual ground position line is the line marked in yellow. It keeps going up, and that is effectively the boundary between India and Pakistan at that area. The dispute of Siachen is because Pakistan claims this white line actually going up to the Karakoram Pass. India disputes that, and when we moved in to these heights, we established the AGPL, the actual ground position line, which is the yellow line. That yellow line is on the Saltoro range, and this post is the Sonam post, one of the northernmost posts along the AGPL on the Saltoro range. Whoever commands the heights on the Saltoro range commands the Siachen glacier over there, and therefore, inasmuch as we call it a battle for the Siachen glacier, it is in fact a battle being waged for command of the heights of the Saltoro range, which the Indian Army at this stage and for many decades has ended up commanding. So that gives you an idea of just where this battle is being fought.